And now the next step is I want to do my freeze panes. Windows freeze panes. So the next step is completing these and getting all the formulas in. So here for 2010, whoops, let me undo that. So my numbers filled in is what I want to do is I need that cost-based and market-based, so I just unfreeze them and then freeze my panes again. Okay, so now we want to fill in all the formulas. For market-based, for the farm for 2010, my cash should be $113,421, the same as it is for cost-based. So I want to do a plus or an equals and then click on that cell. So it's just equals B9 here. The nice thing about Excel is that if I have my cursor here and it's a fat plus sign, but if I go over here and get it right on that little square in the corner, it goes into a thin plus sign. And when it's thin, I can click and then drag across, and that's going to automatically copy. But the really nice thing is it automatically copies, it automatically moves those cell references over because we've copied over. And so this next one, instead of referring to B9, it's referring to C9. And then this next one, and I double click on a cell and that lets me shows me what's in that cell. It refers to D9. And so escape takes me back out of that. So here we've copied in all four of those. And then what we want to do is if we highlight all four and again take that fat plus sign, get it to a thin one, and then click and drag down, it's also going to go across and fill those in everywhere. And in my filled in numbers, I notice that I've got a mistake over here. There isn't any, but I've got no yellow next to my hay, so I'm going to put that yellow in just to be consistent. One thing that it has done is I dragged down and I filled in numbers for formulas that aren't there, and so just highlight those and delete them to get rid of them, but I think it's faster to fill it in all at once. So now you've almost got your current assets section done. The last thing you need is your total current assets. The way that you're going to do this is click on the cell where you need it, then go home, and there's this summation sign here. So click your summation sign, and it's highlighting what it automatically put in. Since there's no number here, it just took the numbers that were right above that. So what you want to do is just get your cursor over here to the corner, and then where it makes those arrow signs, just click and drag up. And now it shows that it's using B9 to B22. It's summing over them. And so that's what you can do. And then once you have it here, I can just drag that across. And I'm used to dragging across and know what I'm doing, but I think it's always good to just kind of check yourself once you do things like that. And so just come over here to one of these, click on the cell, then double click, and it highlights and shows me what's included in that formula. And it's highlighted my whole range. It's the range right above where I'm at, and so I know that I'm good. And so then you can click enter to accept what's already there or escape. So we've got the current assets done. The current non-current assets, I do the same thing, plus the amount from the market value 2 columns over, drag it across, drag it down, and it fills those in. And then my total non-current assets, click on the summation sign. In this case, all the numbers were solid, so it gave us the right reference, so click enter, drag across. And then my total business assets are going to be plus my current assets plus my non-current assets. And once I have it for one, I can drag it across. So here's another formatting issue. Here we don't show the dollars and cents, that we have 0 decimal places, and we really want to be consistent, but in here is put in 2 decimal places there. So if I go up here next to number and click this, it's actually going to take me down 1 decimal place, so I click it twice, I get rid of those. Another thing to highlight and show you here, sometimes you'll see these hatch marks across. Is what that means is what the numbers in that cell are too big. There's too many of them to display in this narrow of a column width, and so if you increase the column width a little bit, you'd be able to see it. But by, in this case, the problem was that we had those extra decimal places, so by getting rid of the decimal places, it gives us enough room to display that. So our business assets are filled in. Over here in the personal column, or where we've combined the personal and farm, we've got to take our business assets plus our personal assets, and that's going to equal our total assets. So now your full balance sheet, your asset side of your balance sheet has been filled in, but we've got to do the liabilities now. So the same way, the current liabilities, we just say plus the previous number in the other column, drag it over, drag it down, and here I'm going to actually drag down through deferred tax on non-current assets, because once I fill in the formula there, then it'll just use those numbers and automatically fill them in. I need my summation. In this case, I've got to adjust that range a little bit, drag it across. My non-current liabilities plus the one in the cost column, drag it across, drag it down. My deferred tax on non-current assets, I'm going to have to figure that out. And then here I'm just going to refer to it so I can actually fill in that formula and drag it down right now. So just to kind of show you what's happening here, when I put 1500 in here, once I finally get it the right formula here, it's going to automatically put that in those other columns. And so if I fill in those formulas now, I've just got them there available for me. So total, and one thing you can do just to help yourself as you're going through, if you have something that you still need to fix something on, one thing you can do is come over here and highlight it, and if you click here, it's going to make that red. And so that just tells me that I've still got something to work on there. I've still got a problem that I've got to come back in and fix. So that can be kind of a note. Once you've fixed that, you can come in here, click next to it, and do automatic, and change them back to black if you'd like. So that tells me there's still something I need to fix there. So my total non-current liabilities, summation, it's taken actually all three of those, so that's just great. Drag this across. So I've got all my total liabilities. For my total business liabilities, that's my total non-current. I add my current plus my non-current. Whoops, get the right reference there. It's got those decimal places in again, so get rid of them. And then drag it across. For my total liabilities over here, it's my business liabilities plus my personal liabilities. Another thing I can do there is, since those numbers are right together, I can just click on that sum sign and it'll automatically sum the two together. So either one would have worked good for that. So we know that we've got everything on our assets and our liabilities done, except we've got these deferred tax things that we've got to figure out. And so let's just go ahead and fill those in right now. So the first thing to do is come back up here and think about it. We deferred tax on current assets are because we have things that if we sold them, they'd be income on our tax return. And so just coming down through here, your taxes is based on cash basis. So accounts receivable is maybe hay that you've sold, but you haven't got cash for it yet. And since you hadn't got the cash for it yet, it didn't show up on your tax return yet. But once they do give you those cash, or give you the cash, it's going to be taxable. So we're going to have to pay money on that $11,000. The same thing with these feeder livestock, our crops on hand. The prepaid expenses, if you actually sold them for $3,500, you'd have to pay income tax on that. The supplies, the cash invested in growing crops. So really basically everything but your cash are amounts that would be included on your income statement if you sold them. So there, and as I've highlighted it, you can see that this is $187,082. So right down here it says the sum of my highlighted range. So that's the income that I declare on my tax return. Then I've got to look down here in my current liabilities and say, well, if I did sell those and I paid off what I owe, can I deduct something? There's no accounts payable, but if there were and I paid them off, I'd be able to deduct that. And so we want to include that in the formula because for the next time you use this file, it may not have a zero, it may have a number there. Notes payable is the principal payment. Principal is not tax deductible, so that wouldn't be the case. We can use this. Accrued interest is for a property tax. Accrued interest would be tax deductible because interest is tax deductible. The current portion of term debt is a mortgage, it's principal, it's not. Accrued tax is property tax, and that would be deductible. Income tax payable is not a tax deductible expense. So we've got here accounts payable, accrued interest, and accrued tax that are all going to be deductions that we'd be able to take.